Emma had met Mark on a dating app. His profile seemed perfect, charming, funny, and he had a great taste in movies. After a week of texting, he invited her over for a casual Netflix and chill night. Emma hesitated at first, but decided to give it a shot. He seemed harmless enough, and she made sure to tell her roommate where she was going. Mark's house was a little out of the way, tucked into a quiet neighborhood surrounded by trees. When she arrived, he greeted her with a warm smile, and she felt her initial nervousness melt away. His house was neat, tastefully decorated, and smelled fresh of popcorn. They settled on a horror movie which Mark claimed was his favorite genre. Emma loved horror too, so it seemed like a perfect match. As the movie played, he dimmed the lights, creating an eerie yet cozy ambience. Halfway through the movie, the internet connection glitched and Netflix froze. Mark laughed it off, saying it happens sometimes, and excused himself to reset the router. Emma waited, scrolling through her phone to pass the time. Minutes turned into 10, then 15. She called out, "Mark, everything okay?" but got no response. Feeling uneasy, she stood up to check on him. The house was eerily silent. She walked into the hallway, where the only light came from a flickering bulb. As she approached the kitchen, she noticed the back door was slightly open, creaking with the wind. "Mark?" she called again, her voice trembling now. No answer. She pulled out her phone and started texting her roommate when she heard footsteps behind her. She turned around, but no one was there. Her heart pounded as she decided it was time to leave. Grabbing her keys from the couch, she headed for the front door. Just as she reached for the handle, she heard a faint whisper behind her. "Leaving already?" Emma froze. Slowly, she turned to see Mark standing in the shadowy corner of the living room. His face was calm, but his eyes, they were different, cold and calculating. I remembered I have an early morning tomorrow," she stammered, trying to keep her voice steady. Mark stepped closer, blocking the door. "But you just got here," he said softly. Emma's instinct screamed at her to run. Clutching her keys tightly, she smiled and said, "I'll text you, okay? This was fun." Mark tilted his head, studying her like a predator, deciding whether to pounce. Finally, he moved aside. Emma bolted out the door, not daring to look back until she was safely in her car. As she drove away, her phone buzzed. It was a message from Mark. "You left your scarf. See you again soon." The thing is, Emma hadn't brought a scarf. I had been single for a while, and after convincing from friends, decided to try online dating. I matched with a guy named Chris. He seemed normal, polite, funny, and genuinely interested in getting to know me. We agreed to meet at a quaint coffee shop downtown for our first date. It felt safe, public, and casual. I arrived early, grabbed a table near the window, and waited. A few minutes later, Chris walked in. He was taller than I expected, with an intense gaze that made me a little uncomfortable, but I brushed it off as nerves. We exchanged pleasantries and ordered our drinks. He didn't talk much at first, just kept staring at me like he was studying my every move. I tried to break the awkward silence with small talk, work, hobbies, family, but his responses were short and he kept steering the conversation back to me. "You seem so familiar," he said, leaning forward. "Really?" I asked nervously. "I don't think we've met before." "No," he said, his eyes narrowing. "I'm sure of it. I've seen you somewhere." That should have been a red flag, but I convinced myself he was just trying to make conversation. Halfway through the date, I noticed something odd. He wasn't drinking his coffee. He just held the cup, letting it go cold. When I asked if he didn't like it, he shrugged and said, "I don't really drink coffee." That struck me as strange. Why meet at a coffee shop then? As the date went on, his questions became more personal. Too personal. "Do you live alone? What time do you usually get home from work? Do you lock your windows at night?" I laughed nervously, trying to deflect, but my unease was growing. When I glanced out the window, something made my stomach drop. Across the street, parked under a broken street light, was a car. I recognized it before. It was the same car that had been parked outside my apartment the last 3 nights. A chill ran down my spine. I should get going, I said, grabbing my bag. Chris frowned, but we just started talking. I just remembered I have something I need to do. I tried to sound casual, but my voice wavered. He stared at me for a long moment, then smiled. Okay, I'll walk you to your car. No, I blurted too quickly. I'm fine. It's just around the corner. His smile faded and his expression darkened. I insist. At that moment, the barista called out, Miss, you forgot your receipt. It was a small thing, but it gave me an excuse to step away. I mouthed, thank you, to her, grabbed the slip of paper, and bolted out the door before Chris could follow. I didn't go right to my car right away. Instead, I ducked into a nearby bookstore and watched from the window. Chris came out of the coffee shop, looked around, and then walked straight to the car under the broken streetlight. He got in and just sat there, staring in the direction of the coffee shop. My hands shook as I called a friend to come pick me up. I didn't go home that night. I stayed at my friend's place. The next morning, I checked my dating profile. Chris's account was gone. No trace of him. But when I went outside to grab my mail, I found something tucked underneath my windshield wiper. A single coffee cup sleeve with the words, "See you soon." I met Jason at a fitness class about a week before our first date. He was charming, funny, and seemed like he genuinely shared my interest in working out. When he suggested we do a workout date at his gym, it sounded unique and fun. The gym wasn't far from my place, so I figured it was a safe enough choice. It was a small private gym, he said. He had a membership too, and it wasn't too crowded, which I liked. When I arrived, Jason was already there, setting up some equipment in the corner. He greeted me with his usual smile, and I felt at ease. We started with some light stretches and then moved on to weights. Jason was super attentive, maybe too attentive. He kept adjusting my form, standing way too close. I told myself he was just being helpful, but there was something off about how his hands lingered. "You're really strong," he said, his voice low. "I like that in a woman." I laughed awkwardly, brushing it off. Then he suggested we do some circuit training in the back room. It was smaller, more secluded. I followed him, not wanting to sound rude. The vibe shifted as soon as we stepped into the room. The overhead lights flickered slightly, and the hum of the main gym faded away. It was just us. Jason closed the door behind us, and for a moment, I felt trapped. "Let's do some partner drills," he said, his tone almost too eager. We started with a medicine ball toss, but as I turned to pick up the ball after one of the throws, I noticed something on the wall. A row of pictures. Photos of people working out, smiling, lifting weights. But then I saw it. In one of the photos, there I was, stretching in a yoga class. It was from weeks ago. "Jason?" I asked, my voice trembling. "Why is there a picture of me on this wall?" He froze for a moment, then gave me a wide, unsettling smile. "Oh, that? I just thought you had great form. You didn't notice me in class that day, did you?" My blood ran cold. "What do you mean?" "I've been going to your gym for months now. I was waiting for the right time to introduce myself." I felt my stomach drop. I hadn't even noticed him before last week. My pulse quickened, and I instinctively stepped back towards the door, but Jason moved to block it. "Hey, don't leave. We're just getting started," he said, his voice calm, but with an edge that sent shivers down my spine. I forced a nervous laugh, trying to mask my fear. "Actually, I'm feeling kind of sick. Maybe we can reschedule." He tilted his head, studying me like a predator sizing up its prey. "But I've been waiting for this." In a flash, I grabbed the medicine ball and hurled it at him. It caught him off guard, and I darted for the door. My hands shook as I fumbled with the lock, but I managed to swing it open and sprint out into the main gym. The other gym goers turned to look as I ran out the front door. I didn't stop until I was at my car, locking the doors and speeding away. Later that night, I got a text from Jason. "You didn't have to run. I'll see you at your gym soon." I never went back to that gym, and I never heard from Jason again. But every now and then when I'm working out, I can't shake the feeling that someone's watching me.